So if you could tell by my thumbnail, I am not the biggest fan of pumpkin. I've never liked pumpkin pie since I was little. I've had pumpkin bread gifted to me before and it was not really my thing. So why do I have so much pumpkin canned up? Well, I'm going to share that with you. I'm going to share with you what we are going to make with some pumpkin to see if I can change my mind. We're going to make some apple cider donuts as well as some mock pineapple. So we had a sweet old lab named Maisie. I'll put a picture of her up here. She was our pumpkin pie and she had digestive issues as she got older. So we would add a little bit of pureed pumpkin to her food every time she ate. But by the time she passed, she was an old girl, but I still have a lot of pumpkin canned up. So I need to find something that I like to do with it. And I thought we would try a couple of new recipes that I've never tried before. So today we're going to also make pumpkin spice donuts and some pumpkin cream cheese muffins. So the very first thing that I need to do is drain my canned pumpkin. And it can take quite a while for this to all drain out because I don't really use pumpkin a whole lot in baking. I did do a little research to see about how much pumpkin puree a quart of home canned pumpkin chunks would make, and it says it averages 2 cups. So I am going to get, this was a narrow mouth jar, didn't want to come out very good. Okay, so with the 2 quarts that I'm draining here, I should get close to 4 cups of pumpkin puree, which should be enough for the 2 recipes that I'm doing. But I'm just going to have to let this sit for a while, for probably about an hour, and then we will come back and get our recipe made. I'm going to be putting all of the pumpkin that I just strained into this bowl and using my immersion blender, starting really slowly. And you do have to be careful not to lift this thing up very high because pumpkin will go everywhere. Ask me how I know. Oh, but it took about 3 minutes for it to get to this consistency, which as you can see is very creamy, no lumps, no strings. It is a little watery still, and I did drain off a little bit of that water. But now I'm going to be adding all my spices in no particular order. Is 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, a half teaspoon of ground ginger, 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and about 1/4 teaspoon of cloves or allspice. Now I'm going to get my pan ready by spraying. This is actually a little Wilton brand bundt pan. I didn't have an actual donut pan, so it worked really cute in the end, though. You will see. So I am adding my brown sugar, my regular sugar, my melted butter, and I'm going to get that all mixed together until it's nice and creamy, or as creamy as can be. And then I am going to add my 2 eggs to that. And I walked away and let it set for a little bit, so it took a little bit to get that worked in. But now I'm going to add all of my dry ingredients, which is flour, baking soda, baking powder, and salt. And I'm going to stir that all around so there's no clumps of any one thing in one area. And now I'm going to add my pureed pumpkin. And we'll get that all mixed together. And if you noticed, I forgot one thing. It's off to the left there. But I'm just adding my dry ingredients into the wet. And after I had it all mixed, I was like, oh, darn it, I forgot the spices. But what I normally do with the spices, again, because sometimes you can get little lumps in there and you can see them still in my strainer, is I just use a strainer to sift those out because I cannot stand biting into anything and having like a lump of baking soda or a strong spice. So now I'm just getting that all mixed together, and it did incorporate very well. And I'm just going to use a piping bag. I just find that it works easier when I'm trying to put stuff into small spaces like this. Going to cut the tip off, and then we are just going to fill these about halfway. And it was about 2 rounds around the little bundt. This is a bundt pan. I don't know if I said that already, but it took about 2 little swirls around it to get it to the halfway mark. So I'm just going to continue doing this until I get my whole pan full. And I do only have 1 pan of these, so it was a little tedious baking one at a time, but we got it done. Now these went into the oven and they baked 350 degrees. And I did these for about 11 to 12 minutes. And this is how they turned out. And I think they just look like little mini pumpkins when the bottom side of the bundt pan portion is up on the top, as you can see there. But the smoother side is the actual top. And I just thought they turned out super cute. Now next we went on to making our mock pineapple. These are some zucchinis that I pulled out of the garden a little while ago. The top parts, the skinny neck part, was a little rubbery. So all I'm doing is cutting all the bad parts out, skinning the outside, and then taking everything that is in the center, including all the soft little pieces that are up next to the hard edge out, so that I have nice firm pieces of zucchini here. And then I'm going to cut them into little chunks, kind of like what you would see if you opened up a can of chunk pineapple at the store, and getting those put aside into a bowl. So through the magic of YouTube, I am fast forwarding to where I have them all done, and I'm going to dump these into a pot. And to the pot, we're going to add 3 cups of sugar. And I know that seems like a lot, but I guess to make it taste like sweet pineapple, you need to have some sugar in there. And then it calls for 1.5 cups of bottled lemon juice, and then a 46 or 48 ounce, I can't remember off the top of my head, can of unsweetened pineapple juice. And I like to swish the bottom of the can around because I find the bottom is where all of the good solids of the juice lay. So I'm going to get that swished around so we get all the goodness out of there. Let it simmer for 20 minutes. Once it's done that, I'm going to ladle in the pineapple into each of the jars. The recipe says that you can go to a 1/2 inch headspace, but anytime I have anything sugary, I just kind of prefer to stick to the 1 inch of headspace, just so that if any siphoning happens, that sugary residue doesn't interfere with the seal of my canning lid. So now I'm just kind of pushing them around to get them down in there, get them debubbled. Then I'm just going to take a hot, damp paper towel and wipe the rims to remove any sugary residue. I've got my pre-rinsed 4 jars canning lids, and I'm going to get one of those on the top of every one of my jars. And then I'm going to take my rings, I'm going to screw those on finger tight, and then I'm going to get those lifted into my canner. Now, this is my All-American 921 pressure canner, but you can use it as a water bath canner. And these are 1/2 pints, so it doesn't take a whole lot of water. And you can see I just have the lid cracked there. And we got these processed, and this is what they looked like when they came out. What was kind of fun is because the pineapple juice obviously is yellow, right away it starts to look like actual pineapple, the way you cut the chunks and then the yellowness of the liquid. And so I'm just going to let these sit and cool for about 24 hours overnight is best for me. And then once we are done in the morning, I will get these all, the rings taken off. I will get them washed. So if there's any sticky residue on the sides, it'll come off, and get them put in my pantry. And next we are going to make some pumpkin cream cheese muffins. I had these little fun fall looking cupcake paper, so I thought I would just go ahead and use those. Although I have found once you bake something in them, the design kind of disappears. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and use those. This is the cream cheese that I used, and I'm going to put the recipe links down in the description if you are interested in these, so I don't go over all the ingredients for each. But this cream cheese is some that I had frozen. And so when it comes out of the freezer and thaws, it is kind of lumpy. And to this cream cheese, I added some regular granulated sugar and some vanilla. And then I just sat and worked it with the spoon to get it creamy. And by the end, you actually couldn't tell that it had ever been frozen. It looked like I had just creamed up some regular cream cheese. So now we're going to get all of our dry ingredients put in, which we have some flour, baking powder, baking soda. Then we're going to use our spices. Oh, and some salt. Don't want to forget the salt. And we're putting in some cinnamon and some nutmeg and some allspice. Now, the recipes called for a cardamom powder or a cardamom spice, but I didn't have any, and they say you can use allspice in conjunction of that. So now I'm just adding in the brown sugar, the eggs, and getting that all mixed in till we get it all incorporated. And there we have it looking all pretty. And you can see there are a few lumps of the brown sugar in there, but I didn't feel like picking them out. So this is the leftover puree from what I had strained when we made the pumpkin donuts, and I got that all nice incorporated. Now we're going to fold in the dry ingredients until that is all nice and incorporated. And the recipe specifically states not to overmix it. So we just folded it until we got it all nice and put together. And then I just took my Pampered Chef scooper and scooped 1 heaping scoop into each one of these, and it left 3 spaces empty. And my grandmother and mother always taught me to put just a little bit of water in the bottom of each of these, and it helps with the moisture content while you're baking. Now we're going to take a little dollop of that cream cheese mixture, and we're going to set it in the center and tap it down a little bit. This is what it looks like. And we're going to get those in the oven and get those cooked. And here's what they look like when they came out. Now we're going to make our apple cider donuts. Now I am taking my apple cider, which was like 1.5 cups, and I just cooked and reduced it to a third. This is what they look like when they were done. I figured I wouldn't bore you because the process was very much the same as it was with the pumpkin donuts. But now on to the taste test. Okay, so now comes the taste test. And if you remember at the beginning of this video, I said I didn't really like pumpkin. So we are going to try one of the pumpkin donuts. Now they have been sitting out in a sealed container overnight. And so the cinnamon sugar on them, as you can see, is not quite like the fresh ones that I just made today because I made these yesterday. They're very moist and not super pumpkiny. But because I don't like pumpkin, they're okay. I mean, I would eat them with a cup of coffee and it probably wouldn't bother me. So now we're going to try one of the apple cider donuts that I made today. And right away, these look a little drier. They are drier. I cooked them even less time than the pumpkin ones, but they do need a little more moisture in them. But I do like the flavor. So now we're going to try one of these pumpkin cream cheese muffins. Paper peeled off. I'll just rip it in half. Ish. Okay. The moisture content on them is very good. Not really an overwhelming flavor of pumpkin or the pumpkin spice. Maybe I'm just used to the zucchini bread that I make, which is kind of like a zucchini spice bread. But these are pretty mild. I'm a so-so person when it comes to cream cheese, so I could take or leave the cream cheese on the inside. But as far as soft and moisture content, the pumpkin donuts and the pumpkin muffins definitely were right on point with that. The apple cider donuts, they really needed a little more liquid or something in them. Maybe not condense the apple cider down quite so far. I did it according to the recipe, but I think I would prefer them to be a lot softer like the other two are. But overall, not bad. My family has already tried the pumpkin donuts, and most of them are already gone because they loved them. So I guess if you like pumpkin, that just tells you those are good. They have yet to try the others, but I'm sure these will be gone just as quick. But that's it for today. I appreciate you hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time.